So I've had a few questions this week with regards to the homework, but there's definitely some questions about the ribbon and how to do that, and it's a little less straightforward than, say, the other primitives. So I'm going to go ahead and show a quick demo on how to do the ribbon. So first of all, the size of these documents, which was another thing brought up. Each image that you're working on, like each primitive, I wouldn't really go bigger than 900 tall, maybe, 1920. I mean, these are just arbitrary numbers. I'm not picking anything too specific. Let's just try that. The test really is to, how does it fit on your screen? I mean, for this isn't for all cases, just for this assignment. So I'm going to crop something that feels good on my monitor. My monitor isn't as widescreen. My Cintiq is a 4:3. So this is going to fit better, and that's fine. Now resolution-wise, how many pixels do you need? About 1,000 pixels tall should be good. More than that, less than that, you're going to find yourself wanting more and being a little bit pixelated. I wouldn't go more than 1,500 tall. That would be overkill to do more than that. So for the ribbon part of this assignment, I would first start with sketching. Let's just always assume that sketching is the first thing we're going to do on just about any piece. And to do that sketch, I'm just going to do a curved line. This is just the design part of the ribbon. And I'm going to duplicate it, Command J, Control T to transform. I'm going to offset to the right and then make it a little smaller. That compensates for the perspective on the image. So once I've done this, I'm going to try and go a little more this way. That's good. I'm going to connect those lines and the tangents. So now I have a ribbon sketch done. Let's go ahead and fill in our background with a medium gray. So using the paint bucket, I'm just going to fill that gray. Now we need, essentially I have 1, 2, 3, 4 shapes for this ribbon that I need to fill in. I'm going to Command E and merge my sketch, and I'm going to probably also do just a little bit of planning. So I have, here's a shape right here. Underneath. Here's another shape, right? I'm just kind of doing that so you can see the 4 shapes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go ahead and fill these in. There's 2 ways to really do this. One is to just freehand it, which can be pretty difficult. You could do a hand lasso tool and just lasso in each shape one at a time. You can also use the pen tool, which is going to be the most precise. So I'm going to make a new layer. This is my sketch. This layer, I'm going to start laying down points. And I have a video on the pen tool that will either go out with this, will probably go out with this video if I haven't sent it already. So you can kind of learn how to do this. Use this tool. It's very useful for, in particular for curvy shapes. Whenever you have a little big, especially big curvy things. It's a lot like Illustrator. Just these Bezier handles that you can draw out. And you start to get pretty good at placing your Bezier points or curve points and pulling out your handles. You can come back in and fix and adjust the handles after the fact. And one more shape. So you can see very lightly the each of those shapes, and I'm going to systematically fill them in so that one is on top of the other. So I'll grab that shape using the pen tool, right click, make selection. Okay, and before I do that, undo. Just so we don't lose the paths, open up your paths palette, which should be under here, window, paths, if it's not already open. And by default it puts it on the working path, so I'm going to drag that onto a new layer so that it's called path 1. That just ensures I don't lose the paths I've created. So right click, make selection, okay. And I'll fill that in with a value. I'm going to make this ribbon a little bit darker than my background. Go back to my paths, grab the next one. P for pen tool, right click, make selection. This is going to be darker, or not darker. I will do darker eventually. And I'm just going to fill it in. Pen tool, so this layer is going to go back again. I might call these R1, R2, R3, R for ribbon. So make selection, okay. Fill this one in. And the last one, P, click, right click. You can do this, you can also just hit Control or Command Enter. No, you can't, because that will make all of your paths selected. So if you just want to make one path selected, right click, make selection. Okay. That's trying to be fancy. This one's going to be called R4. So there we have a nice ribbon. We could add an edge to your ribbon if you want to. You can either use a pen tool to draw out a shape around the edge. Okay, there's a new path. Pull that over. Right click, This time, let's just stroke the path. So I'm going to need to get myself a nice round brush, hard edge, find the thickness I want this to be. That'll be about right. Let's just go a step darker so we can see it. This one will go on top. Stroke path, brush. Gonna make some corrections to my shapes just to fill in some of those gaps. This one I'm gonna come up a little bit. This one. Make sure you paint on the right layers. I just hold Control to access my arrow tool, and I click on the layer I want to paint on. And I make sure on the right that it's on the right layer. Great, so we have all of our shapes filled in, and we now just want to start to shade it appropriately. So we need to think of a light source. I'll do it on my sketch layer. So my light source, I'm going to say is, try to pick something that will give yourself a cast shadow on your actual ribbon. I'm going to say the light source is coming from a little bit that way. That's going to allow for a core shadow right about here. Maybe start to get a core there, not too much. The cast shadow is going to come about right here. Alright, so there's kind of like the light coming through. So all this area gets in shadow. This is all going to be in cast shadow underneath here. And then we can do a ground plane of sorts this way. There's our cast shadow on the ground. Highlights are going to be about here. A little bit on the back side. A little bit on the back side there. So that's kind of a nice plan, when I sort of plan out your lighting scheme. You can kind of keep that on a little bit if I want. So here's R1, lock the transparency. Let's grab maybe a soft airbrush. I'm going to say this is my middle value, so I'm going to come up a little bit. There's sort of my lighter value here. Oops. So just kind of blending that, and then here I can start to get into the core shadow. This is my light. My halfway to black is about here. So let's just kind of use that as the shading tool. Here is the core shadow right there for R2. That's actually R3. And I'll fill in all that. Here's the cast shadow down there. R4 is completely in cast shadow, as is R2. It is. Let's hide my sketch and just kind of see what we have. Alright, so there's the core starting here, but I haven't quite, you can't quite see it yet, and that's okay, we're going to reveal it in a second. I'm going to, oops, R2. can now take our 3 here, and I'm going to lightly paint in a little bit of light. I'm going to grab that color here and just start to fill in up until the core. We can say, assume a little light might bounce off the ribbon and kind of fill in that area. Redarken that core just a little bit. Reflected light. There we go. This is here on this R4. Let's put in a little bit of reflected light right up in there. Maybe right in here. Turn down my flow. I can slowly build this up. Back to R3. I'm going to put in a little bit more higher value right on the highlight area. R1, same thing. Almost get a little bit of light coming down here too, just to show that transition. So the basic principle, change in value equals change in form. So we want to make sure we're just displaying or showcasing that change in form as much as we can. So maybe I'm going to put in a, grab a lasso tool, polygon, right there. Make some corrections on this cast shadow. New layer. Select that, go halfway to black, and there's our cast shadow. Hide our sketch. You can get a little bit crazy with this, say, oh, this area is a little farther away, so we're going to blur out those edges. Let it get sharper as it gets closer to the ground. That might be a nice touch. We could also lock the transparency. Let's put in a little bit of light, a little more light, kind of getting in here and back here, just touching it. You know, that's really about it. So it's not, I guess I could touch up the edge. Maybe erase out some of this. There we go. And the edge, maybe I'll just run a hue saturation, go a little lighter, a little darker. for now. But so feel free to take it further. You know, do what. Maybe I put in some environment into this. Let's do a little bit. Help that foreground come forward. Push that background away from us. That's one way to consider it. If I wanted to go for a photography studio where I do the backdrop is darker here and then lighter on the ground as the roll of paper faces upward, I could do that. That makes a little more interesting composition. Kind of makes that thing stand out a little bit. Yeah, so that's it for the ribbon. Good. Alright, so just a couple of additional fixes or kind of some help. Some of you have sent in your homework just asking, is this right? And how can I make this better? Something seems to be not quite right. So I think it's good for us to look at this, and this will preempt class on Tuesday or Thursday for all of you to some of the things we're going to be looking at. And this is a nice cube going right here, but there's a couple things we want to do. I think this was Casey's. One, the shadow is going the gradient on this side of the cube is kind of going the wrong direction. Light is going to bounce off the ground and illuminate this, so it's going to get lighter actually closer to the ground and darker as we get away from it. And it's going to move in a diagonal direction, kind of from left to right, because there's more light around this area, and obviously this is in the shadow, so this corner is going to be darker. So I'll just do a fix by making the selection. Let's just grab that and go halfway to black just so we kind of establish once again what that value should be. So if this is your brightest value here, you really shouldn't go darker than that. Maybe go a little darker. Okay, and so if we're going to start that as our darkest value, then we'll put in a little bit of light down here at the bottom left corner. That feels about right. Let's take a look at the value of your shadow. So here, this is our value for this ground plane, and halfway to black should be about there. And let's see. So your shadow is too dark, so we need to lighten that up. Once again, there's our value, halfway to black, and fill that in. So that's going to be a better value for us. Control Shift I just to kind of paint out the soft edges we have from left over. Okay, and now I'll go ahead and do a blur around the edges here. You had before. I'll also take that, and let's just put a little bit of light in to that shadow. Not too much. Very, very subtle there. And we'll reestablish a contact shadow to be pretty dark. This we can go further than halfway to black because we're right in the crack where no light can really to get in, so that's okay to go darker there. Good. There's another one. This was Casey's. No, that was Kenneth, sorry. The last one was Casey's. So here, Kenneth has gone in color already with the texture, which is fine, by all means. I'm going to be probably in class just doing this and evaluating based on that. So just be aware, that's what we're going to be looking at in class. You might want to adjust some values. So here the problem is your fall off is too quick, and you're almost losing the edge of your shadow. So try to keep this shadow pretty consistent all the way across. So there's my value, halfway to black. Good. Command H just to hide my selection. Now I'm going to come back with this and just pump a little bit of light into the edge of the shadow. Even that's kind of too much. That's fine. Blur. Have that selection on. Turn off. Keep it sharp as it gets close, and we're looking pretty good. We do need to come in also with a pretty dark cast shadow, like that. Okay, so get that contact shadow darker in there. And then check your values, just make sure. Let's see, this there. Still tough when you have the textures on because it's not quite as but you're looking pretty good. I think the only thing I'm looking at is that value getting the same as that value. So I'd be curious if we just brought this value up slightly. J, U. We just kind of bring that one up. It gives a little stronger read of the three sides. We might have overdone our values. Might be okay actually. Maybe a little bit too far. It's harder on these darker objects to keep the differentiation between the three sides. So it's a little more challenging. But just trying to get at least a more distinct value. But I think overall, you've done fine. I was just kind of exploring that idea. But your cast shadow really was the main issue here. So just fixing that made, I think, a big difference. And putting in that contact shadow, getting it a little stronger. And you can fiddle with that. Alright guys, so there's some help for you. Once again, I guess we're also looking, what is the homework this week? It is 1 cube, 1 sphere, 1 ribbon, and 1 choice. That could be a cylinder, it could be a cone, it could be a combination of shapes. Whatever you want to do, I'm leaving it up to you. So yeah, 4 objects, grayscale, don't need texture, you can keep it matte, just like I did on this ribbon, or just like this one is right here. I did add, by the way, a little light, bounce light coming into the underside of this ribbon. I thought it would look nice. Okay.